everybody. Shane and Seth here.
Hello, hello.
It is Tuesday, so we're coming to you with this week's Tips Tuesday. We're going to be talking about finances, how to be savvy with finances. Thank you, Cameron, Cameron's back here. Thanks for putting this together, our slide with our title. So we're going to talk about finances. Seth, we've had some people kind of financial stuff. We want to talk about that. Talk about how this came up and why we're addressing it.
Yeah, so I've had a lot of really good conversations with friends and family about the topic of finance. I think I've had a lot of good conversations with people just saying like, hey, we want to buy a house, we want to invest, we want to buy investment properties, that kind of thing, but we're not quite in the position to yet. What would you recommend? What are some things? So I kind of have a list. Some of these you might do already. Some of you maybe you've never heard of them, and you can kind of add, chime in where you feel needed.
Yeah.
You've got your own set of wisdom. So first things first, setting up a budget.
Wow.
So that is, it sounds really basic, but most people don't have a set budget. I think it's like 90%. It's a really high percentage of people don't have a set budget. And if they do, they don't have one they stick to. That's the key, right? You can have a budget, but if you don't stick to it, it's not really going to help you. If it's not in front of you, not on a day-to-day basis perhaps, but like at least on a weekly basis. If you're not looking at it, you're probably going to forget about it.
I always have a good budget till I want to go to Dairy Queen, and then mine doesn't really fit. So, just saying.
Food is my weakness too.
Yeah.
Food is my weakness.
Okay, so setting a budget, sticking to it.
Perfect segue into the next topic. So, eating out less can be, if you eat out a lot, that can be a really easy one. Maybe you go out for drinks a lot. Drinks are expensive. You're looking, it's like $10 for a drink. If you're, out eating like daily, you're spending a ton of money on food. Whereas, if you ate out maybe once a week or, whatever it was, then maybe you would do that, you'd save a lot of money essentially, right?
I can only imagine right now all my clients laughing, like every one of them that know me, because they're like, Shane literally eats out every single day. So
I wasn't going to say anything.
Don't follow my example. Seth is teaching us what we should do. But anyway.
I wasn't going to say anything. Savings accounts I think are really good. Really good tool. I would say with savings accounts, if you're using a bank, you get a really low rate of return on your money. The bank's essentially holding your money and using it for their own investments. But if you put it in a short-term investment account, you can get, 5, 6, 7% return on your money, which is a lot better than, what is it, Cameron, like 0.02 or something really small, 2% we'll say. I think it's lower than that. But banks don't have a great rate of return. So short-term accounts are awesome. There's a ton of investment companies out there with financial advisors. You got Thrivent, you've got Fidelity, you've got all these big corporations that can help you set up these investment accounts, that kind of thing, just to help you on the short term and save up some money so that you can make bigger investments like in real estate and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Kind of jumping into, once you have that money, you can kind of then, use it to buy a home. There's programs out there that help first-time home buyers buy at a lower cost. You can get into a home for $7,000, $10,000, $15,000 or 3% down. Last year, this is not as common, I guess it was a year and a half ago, I had a guy get into a home for $300, $300. With all the programs he applied for and qualified for. He had $300, that's all he needed. Wow. He bought a $300,000 town.
Wow.
Kind of crazy. Other two things I wanted to talk about. If you know who Kevin Hart is, he's a comedian. I love Kevin Hart. But he has this thing that he talked about in his career when he was starting out. Basically, he calls it his 50% rule, but every time he made money, he'd put 50% of it away.
50%.
Which is a lot, and maybe that's not your number. Maybe it's 10, maybe it's 20%. But the idea is to kind of create a discipline in putting away money every month. That way you're saving it. Maybe you're putting it in that short-term investment account or whatever. But just to create that discipline so you're not immediately spending it.
Yeah.
I think can be really, really helpful. And then the other rule, I'm blanking on the person that came up with this. This is not a Seth Turner original. But it's called like the 10% purchase rule. So this guy was basically saying, if I'm going to make a purchase, right, and this is not an investment, this is just a commodity, something I want, a car, a new purse, whatever, a video game. He said if he doesn't have at least 10x that amount in his savings account. 10x. He will not buy it. He'll wait.
So how do these rules work for the average Joe like us, right? Like a lot of our friends, a lot of our clients out there in Denver, where you're spending $3,000 on rent,
sure,
right? You go buy a car today and it's $50,000. Nobody has $500,000 in the bank to go buy a new car. How do those rules that you're applying, how did that work for the average person just trying to save up some money to buy a house?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think like I look at Kevin Hart's rule, and I think there's a lot of areas in our life. Like I know I personally spend a ton of money on eating out. If I was a little more disciplined, I made lunch at home, or I cooked dinner at night more often, that kind of thing, then I could save, a couple hundred easy a month and put that aside into something else, right? So it doesn't have to be this extremely large amount, like 50% of my income has to go into this savings account. Yeah. Maybe it's 5%. Just start somewhere. That's the idea, right? Just start with something. That way you can start building that discipline. It becomes part of your daily habits, and then you don't have to think about it, and eventually it becomes kind of routine. Yeah. It gets a little bit easier, and then you wake up one day and you're like, oh, I've got enough to buy a house or invest in this and that and the other. So that's kind of what I would recommend. Just start small. Yeah. Start baby steps and then build those habits, and eventually it'll just keep growing.
I think the thing that I would take away and encourage everybody is, if you only need, your example is $300 to buy a house, that may not be the norm. But if you can do first-time home buyer programs and get in for $5,000, $6,000, we're talking $6,000 that you need saved. We're not talking 20% down. We're not talking $100,000. We're talking $5,000, $6,000. And if you can come up with $5,000, $6,000, you can get into the Denver market, and it's going to start growing at a tremendous amount. So we're talking about just being better with your finances so that you can put a little bit away so that you can have a couple grand to buy a house. So I hope that helps. Hope that's good information for you. If you're struggling with some of those, reach out to myself, or probably Seth is a great person to reach out to, and we can help you figure out a good game plan in the next 6 months, maybe to save up enough to buy your house, or maybe sooner. So hope that helps. God bless. We'll see you next Tuesday.